In 1937, the entire planet drank 26.4 million bags of coffee. That same year, Brazil burned 17.2 million. One pile got shipped. The other got set on fire. This is the story of Brazil's coffee destruction, one of the strangest chapters in the entire history of coffee, and almost nobody talks about it. In 1932, someone shoveled 2,912 kilos of coffee into a steam locomotive to see if it would move the train. It did, for 2 hours, pulling a 610-ton train. The reason anyone tried is the disturbing part. Over 13 years, Brazil destroyed 78.2 million bags of export-grade coffee, roughly 10.3 billion pounds of beans. Picked, dried, sorted, graded, packed for shipping, then stacked into mountains and set on fire by the government, on purpose. And almost nobody talks about it. So how does a country end up torching its own most valuable export? To understand that, you have to understand how completely Brazil owned this market. By the 1920s, roughly 80% of the world's coffee came from Brazil. Not the biggest producer among many, but something a lot closer to a monopoly. Part of the reason for that dominance was what happened in Asia decades earlier, when coffee rust, a fungal disease called Himalaya vastatrix, devastated plantations across Ceylon and the Dutch East Indies, and effectively handed the global market to South America. When Brazilian prices moved, the whole world moved with them. That kind of power creates a temptation. If you control the supply, you control the price. And Brazil had been playing that game since 1906, when the coffee states struck a deal at a town called Taubaté. The idea was simple. The government buys up the extra harvest, holds the beans in warehouses, and keeps them off the market. Less coffee for sale means a higher price. You just sell it slowly, later, when it suits you. The politics behind this arrangement ran deep, particularly between São Paulo and Minas Gerais, the two great coffee states whose rivalry shaped Brazilian federal policy for decades, in what people called the Café com Leite Republic, coffee and milk. São Paulo's coffee elite and Minas Gerais' dairy interests trading the presidency back and forth. On paper, it works beautifully. There is one problem. Coffee trees do not read economic policy. They just keep producing. Every single year, another harvest shows up, whether the warehouses are full or not. By 1929, they were full. And then the global economy fell apart. Quick thing before we go further. If this is the kind of coffee history you did not know you needed, 1930s. Brazilian coffee, the surpluses, the burning, the economics that broke a country. Subscribe. This channel digs into the parts of the coffee world that got quietly written out of the story, and most people never hear them. Okay, the Great Depression hits, and demand for something non-essential, like coffee, falls off a cliff. Prices collapse. Now Brazil is sitting on an enormous pile of beans it cannot sell, cannot store, and cannot stop growing. The old coffee is aging in the warehouses. The new crop is already on its way. So the government makes a decision that still sounds insane today. If the coffee cannot be sold, destroy it. The man who formalized that policy was Getúlio Vargas, who came to power in 1930 after a coup and immediately faced a coffee economy in freefall. The agency he empowered to carry it out was the Departamento Nacional do Café, the National Coffee Department, which administered the destruction program from 1931 all the way through 1944. Every bag that got burned went through that bureaucracy. There were forms, there were records, there were quotas for how much had to disappear. Most of it happened at the port of Santos, on the coast of São Paulo. Coffee came in by rail from the interior, from São Paulo state, from Minas Gerais, from across the growing regions, got unloaded, and instead of sailing off to Europe or the United States, it was piled up and burned. And not a few symbolic sacks. Trainload after trainload, month after month, year after year. Now, the newspapers from back then reported something you would never think of. The smell. Because burning coffee does not smell like a fire. It smells like coffee, roasted way past anything you would ever drink, but unmistakable. And when you burn it by the trainload, that smell does not stay at the docks. It drifts. It rolls up and down the coastline. People near Santos woke up to it, worked in it, and went to sleep in it. And the smoke could be seen for kilometers. Picture that. A whole region that smells like a burnt roast for years, and everyone knows exactly why. And even burning was not fast enough. There was so much coffee that port workers just started throwing it into the sea. Whole shiploads dumped into the water. And here is where the story gets human. Because the sea gave some of it back. Beans washed up along the shore, and people went down and collected them. They scooped the wet coffee off the sand, dried it in the sun, and sold it. It even got a name: marine coffee. Think about what that actually means. This was coffee nobody wanted. It had been officially destroyed. It was garbage floating in the ocean, and selling it was a crime. Because that was the whole point. The plan only worked if the coffee truly disappeared. Every bag that snuck back in through the side door undercut the price they were burning millions to protect. So picking up free beans off a public beach, drying them, and selling them, that made you a criminal. In a country that was, at that very moment, burning its own harvest by the trainload. Which brings us back to that locomotive. In 1932, a newspaper described a test. 2,912 kilos of coffee used as fuel for a steam engine. And honestly, the logic holds up. Coffee beans contain oil. Oil burns. So if you have a basically endless pile of something that burns, and your trains run on something you have to pay for, why not swap them? So they did. About 3 tons of green coffee shoveled into the firebox. It kept the fire going for 2 hours and pulled a 610-ton train. And here is the part that makes it worse. It worked well enough that they kept doing it. That same year, Popular Science reported that Brazilian coffee was being pressed into compact little bricks and burned in locomotives and factory boilers, and that those dried bricks threw off plenty of heat. 4 years later, a French magazine was still out there photographing it. So this was not a one-off stunt. Coffee, the crop that built the entire country, the thing farmers gave whole seasons of their lives to, had been officially demoted to fuel. Pressed into bricks, stacked next to the coal. And while Vargas's government was busy burning it, a company on the other side of the world was figuring out what to do with the surplus. Nestlé had been approached by the Brazilian government itself, asked to find some commercial use for the mountains of beans that could not be sold. The result was Nescafé, launched in 1938. Instant coffee, designed specifically to absorb the kind of volume that no normal market could handle. Brazil's crisis of abundance turned into a product that still sells 1 billion cups a day. Which brings us to the number that should genuinely stop you. In 1937 alone, Brazil burned 17.2 million bags. The entire world that year drank about 26.4 million. So one country, in 1 year, destroyed roughly 2/3 of everything the whole planet drank. And out of Brazil's own harvest that year, only about 30% ever reached the market, 70% of a national crop. Gone. And here is the twist. It did not even work. In September of 1940, coffee hit 5.75 cents a pound, the lowest price ever recorded. 13 years of burning, and the price was worse than when they started. Because every time Brazil pulled its coffee off the market, Colombia and Central America quietly stepped in and took the space. What finally ended it was not the burning. It was the war. The Inter-American Coffee Agreement set fixed export quotas, and the United States started buying at wartime scale. By 1944, the American quota alone reached 10,230,000 bags, and that April, it went up another 20%. The mountains Brazil had spent 13 years trying to burn away were simply bought. But sit with what those 78.2 million bags really were. Every single one was somebody's work. A season of pruning, picking, drying, sorting. Real farms, real families, real years of a life. All of it hauled to the coast, stacked into a pile, and lit on fire, while the price kept falling. Anyway,